The Belt and Road Initiative, announced by Chinese President Xi Jinping in 2013, has been viewed as China's most ambitious geo-economic vision in recent history, covering more than two-thirds of the world's population. 5 years after its birth, the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, has grown from a concept to a reality. By December last year, China had signed over 100 cooperation agreements with 86 countries and international organizations. Yet, along the way, the BRI has never been far from criticism. Its flagship project, the $57 billion China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC project, has been facing, most recently, accusations of colonization since the very beginning. Now, with so much to offer, what are the problems facing this initiative, and how shall we look at the achievements and the challenges of this initiative over the past 5 years and in the near future? Welcome to a special edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. Joining me from New Delhi is Dr. Partha Mukho'padhyay, a senior fellow at the Center for Policy Research. From Beijing, Professor Qingrun from the China Institute of Contemporary International Relations, and in the Beijing studio, Ms. Zoon Ahmed Khan, a senior fellow, a research fellow, I should say, at Tsinghua University. Welcome to all of you. Let me go to my Chinese guest first. For the past 5 years, the initiative has produced many concrete and tangible economic and social benefits. For instance, according to statistics released by the Kenya Railway Corporation, the China-funded Mombasa-Nairobi Standard Gauge Railway has carried more than 1.3 million trips by Kenyans, attaining an occupancy rate of over 95%, while reducing the time necessary connecting Kenya's two biggest cities by half, from 10 hours to 5 hours. And in many parts of the world, the Belt and Road Initiative has improved many people's well-being. Professor Song, is the initiative delivering the kind of benefits it was designed to deliver in the first place?
I think the Belt and Road Initiative, in the past 5 years, they have given comprehensive and tangible benefits to many countries. For example, now China and some participant countries have cooperated to build many railways or roads or seaports, or to increase the air flights between China and some other countries. So I think this big connectivity projects has promoted the inflow of the capital, of the goods, and also the people. So this will boost the regional economy, and this will boost the increase the job opportunities for many countries' people, and this will increase the well-being of many people in different countries. So I think also in the future, the BRI initiative will be implemented for maybe scores of years. So in the future, we will see more and more tangible and also comprehensive benefits to more and more countries, more and more people.
Yeah, well, indeed, we're looking at footage of this railway train, and people able to take this train and enjoying a shorter travel time, and while looking at animals outside there along the way. However, you were talking about such project will benefit people in the future. Professor Song, I want to stay with you. Are we going to see more opportunities, more jobs, more business, more industrialization as a result of connectivity in infrastructure? Because the Belt and Road Initiative is not just about building highways and railways, it's also about bringing greater economic, trade and cultural exchanges and people-to-people exchanges. Are we seeing those happening as yet?
Yeah. For example, if we see that China and us and some countries built a big railway in a country or in a city, I think this railway will be convenient for more and more people for the transportation, and also this will be convenient for the companies or enterprises to transport their goods, and also this will be convenient for more and more people need to come and go from the city, and also maybe the tourism will be boosted. So and also so the city is becoming a convenient city. There will be more and more investment coming, and also there will be more and more enterprises coming. So I think this will be a good example to boost the local development, and also to boost the local people and outside people for the people-to-people exchange, and to know more about each other.
Sure. Well, after all, infrastructure development is infrastructure. I mean, the industrialization has to be there as well for people to feel the long-term benefits of greater connectivity in terms of infrastructure. Ms. Khan, let me go to you, because according to reports, projects under the CPAC are said to have been changing Pakistan's business and economic landscape. Statistics show that after the inauguration of the first stage projects, Pakistan's economic growth rate has been increased to 5.8% in the current fiscal years. That's compared with the previous year's 3.8%, quite a big jump. What kind of concrete benefits has this project, has this initiative brought to your economy, and are the ordinary Pakistanis feeling the positive impacts yet?
Well, I will firstly mention that Pakistan and China's history has been of deep political trust, and in 2013 and 14, when President Xi Jinping, in 2013 when the CPEC was announced, Pakistan was going through a very bad period where we had a massive energy crisis, we were facing security issues, and at that point this kind of an announcement, it rejuvenated and it gave a new kind of positive impact to Pakistan's outlook. So first of all, definitely in terms of this intent, it was a massive development for Pakistan, and since then we see these developments taking a positive turn. As you just mentioned, the 5.8% economic growth. This is the highest in the year since the energy crisis has hit Pakistan for over a decade. So we do see a positive impact so far. Now we also need to add that this is the first phase of the China-Pakistan economic corridor, and as you already mentioned, that the infrastructure construction is one part. The next part is going to be the filling up this infrastructure. So actually when commerce kicks in, when the local people get opportunities. So I would firstly like to comment on this phase that has been completed so far. And the truth is that we have seen a positive impact. I will give you the example of Gwadar, for example. We have a lot of local people that are being employed by the Chinese company that is operating there. These companies are not just employing people for their own economic benefit, but they're also building hospitals, schools, vocational training centers are in the pipeline. So we see an impact in terms of the people's empowerment, opportunities to people in previously peripheral areas of Pakistan, and also we see that the people who are part of these projects, they have a more positive sentiment towards the future of the country. So there is a need to change this towards technology, through technology transfer, and in the second phase we will see a different kind of an impact, but for sure today there is a very positive impact.
Right. Well, along with the development of this project, concerns over the country's ability to pay back loans from China is also rising. In the case of Pakistan, experts say Pakistan's debt and loans to China will peak at around $5 billion by 2022. Given Pakistan's widening deficit, which is a factual phenomenon, so worries are rising concerning the long-term certainty of Pakistan's economic development. So, Ms. Khan, are these worries warranted, and in the long run, will the debts be able to be covered by the Pakistani economy?
Okay, firstly, it is too early to comment whether or not Pakistan will successfully be able to pay these debts, because it will depend on the success of the China-Pakistan economic corridor and how Pakistan responds to this boosted investment. So it will depend on the success, and by success I mean to what extent are Pakistanis able to utilize this investment. How successful will the special economic zones be? How safe and how secure the environment is? And we do see a positive shift in all of these fronts. So we cannot say for sure whether Pakistan will be able to pay back, but given that Pakistan is a country of over 205 million people, we have a massive youth bulge. There is every reason to believe that Pakistan will be able to utilize. And secondly, I would like to add that these recent concerns regarding Pakistan's ability to pay back have also been addressed by Pakistan's government. So there was an official statement which mentioned that a lot of the misconceptions about how this investment is being channelized need to be addressed, and an example is that the loans are soft loans or need to be paid back in a long term, and the energy projects, the energy infrastructure, which is a major chunk of China-Pakistan economic corridor, is in IPP mode, which technically means that the companies that are bringing the investment are doing it on their own responsibility. So some of them are misconceptions, and the other part, we need to make sure that we utilize this investment effectively.
Indeed, it's quite a overarching statement to say because the number is so big that countries must have a problem to address that. But however, it is a concern that has to be addressed. Let me go to my guest in New Delhi, Dr. Mukho'padhyay. Now, China has been pictured in some media in some international media as an aggressive power which is eager to expand its sphere of influence. Now, India took an early stance against the Belt and Road Initiative. Doctor, over the last year, has there been any discussions, any changes to the Indian attitude, either on the government level or in the media or among the general public, especially now that bilateral relations are taking a turn for the better between China and India? Is there a re-look at the kind of feasibility and prospect of this initiative potentially in the long run?
Thank you. My own sense is that is not the case. And I think the issue there is important because I think too much weight is being put on the Belt and Road Initiative in terms of China's relationships with many nations. For example, let us take one of the critical reasons why India is so uncomfortable with the Belt and Road Initiative is because the CPEC, which was just being discussed, a part of the transport connectivity goes through a part which is disputed and claimed by India. And consequently, it becomes a national sovereignty issue rather than more than anything else. So, for example, if the components of the CPEC which are currently going on, for example, the solving the energy crisis in Pakistan, the power plants which come through, which are an important part of ensuring that Pakistan grows, and it is in India's interest to have a strong, healthy economy in Pakistan. Those kinds of projects are completely without any problem for India. So it's a manner of how you associate the Belt and Road. When you say that you have to take everything or nothing, then that creates obviously a problem. We are happy to have Belt and Road, etc., to have projects like the power projects in Pakistan, but obviously there would be issues if you're looking at a transport corridor that goes through areas claimed by us. So that's one part of the story that sort of comes through. The other part of the story is the one that you just also mentioned right now, which is a more complicated issue as to a number of these projects that are coming under the Belt and Road are essentially large projects, and we have, apart from Pakistan, we have recently seen the visit of Prime Minister Mahathir from Malaysia, who has essentially said that a number of the projects that were signed on by the previous government need to be relooked at because it's not quite sure that we will be able to, Malaysia will be able to afford those projects at this point in time. So the question then arises as to what happens if some of these projects fail. To what extent is the government of that particular country responsible for paying back on those projects? We have already seen the example of the Hambantota port in Sri Lanka, where the government, whatever the decisions of the previous government, the project didn't seem to be a commercial success, and now the current government has had to make arrangements by transferring equity and so on to come to an arrangement with the Chinese investors to pay it back. So So there is this, but that is a different tension. It's a tension of the governments of that particular countries to deal with. But it is a concern that India points out, but obviously it is a concern that countries will deal with on their own.
Let me maybe follow up on some of the points, on two of the points that you mentioned, and let me go to the Chinese guest, Professor Sung Qingrun, standing by there. Professor Sung, you have also heard what our Indian guest talked about, the concern on the Indian government about the breach of India's sovereignty and territorial integrity when the CPAC project goes ahead on, the area that are in dispute between India and Pakistan. What is China's rationale here about pushing forward with this project? What does China propose so that these economic initiatives can go ahead without making political relations jeopardized?
Yeah, I think we should not some countries should not be so sensitive about the sensitive issues when we conduct the Belt and Road construction. Sometimes, let me put it this way, we should put to some extent, we should put the politics, separate the politics, sensitive issues from the some economic cooperation, because some small or one or two sensitive issues between two countries is not the whole picture of two-country relations. We have some problems, but on the other hand, most of our relations in many fields are good, so we should conduct the cooperation. For example, we can put aside some sensitive issues between China and India, or China some several other countries. So let's conduct the big projects cooperation, economic cooperation, to promote our bilateral investment, bilateral trade. So this economic activities cooperation can promote the two countries' government officials and also people-to-people's mutual understanding. Maybe this will soften our to help to resolve the sensitive issues between two countries.
Okay, we're going to take a very short break. You have been watching the special program on CGTN on the Belt and Road Initiative. We'll be back right after that. Welcome back. We have been talking about the Belt and Road Initiative, and let me go back to my guest in India, Dr. Mukho'padhyay. Well, I think the Belt and Road Initiative, I understand, because this is not the first time we talk about this initiative, and this is not the first time India or our Indian guest expressed the position of India in terms of the economic corridor. However, the Belt and Road Initiative is much greater than that, and for instance, India is actually an active part of the AIIB, the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank. Actually, India is the biggest recipient of help of the AIIB so far. How do you explain the position of India on this? I mean, you are not supporting the Belt and Road Initiative, and yet you're benefiting from the funding mechanism that has been set up to fund Belt and Road Initiative projects.
Right. I think there is a certain degree of difference of opinion between considering the AIIB as a Belt and Road institution. The AIIB is a wonderful initiative by the Chinese government. The Indian government is the second largest shareholder in creating a multilateral bank that is required for the development of infrastructure in one part of the world. There's a lot of Chinese investment in India right now. Chinese firms are participating in India's highway projects, its metro construction projects in our cities, in its power program. So the issue is not with either investment from China or with assistance from AIIB to a variety of different kinds of projects, or assistance from multilateral banks, which are obviously somewhat more on different terms than assistance from bilateral sources like, let's say, China Exim for projects for the CPEC. So the issue, therefore, is not the nature of the projects. Is it, as I said, that if you basically put everything under BRI and then you say that, yes, either you have to take the whole package or you have to take nothing at all, that's what creates a problem. And that is why I think the inclusion of almost everything. Recently I was at a workshop in Delhi where a researcher from China presented 33 projects in India, about $13 billion according to his calculation, which he said were sort of BRI related. And when India is not really a formal signatory to the BRI story. So it is this essential conflation or merging of trade and investment with China and trade and investment locally with the BRI initiative. We must learn to separate BRI from broader economic relationships with China. India's relationships with China are good, both on the investment and on the trade front. Our bilateral trade is already crossed $80 billion. It might sort of go up to levels that are seen in Malaysia and Vietnam, etc., which have been long-standing Chinese partners. So it is not at all about the relationship between China and India when we talk about the BRI.
I get your point.
We must learn to separate these two.
Well, sometimes we do have this nice intention of giving things a nice tag so that you have, but you know, don't forget that this BRI does have its own special resources designated to it. It has support from various parts of the society, from the government. So if a project is characterized under this initiative, it will get special or additional boosts for its development. So there are certain advantages there that is to be reaped, but the fact that India, because of its geopolitical concerns maybe, or security concerns, that it's not willing to come on board, which is fine. I guess the Chinese government doesn't say you have to come on board, otherwise you're not we're not going to be, you know, friends with you. I don't think that is the case, but I think that that discussion can be shelved for the moment, and really let's see how we can move our relationship forward. Meanwhile, in terms of Pakistan, as we have our guest here from Pakistan, how does Pakistan react to some of the concerns that our Indian guest has mentioned, and also in terms of Pakistan's relationship with India in the future? Are there any signs of will at least on both sides to improve their relationship, so maybe in the future economic integration will become more of a reality?
Well, this is an interesting question to address, because obviously, as a Pakistani, and seeing how the BRI and the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor are benefiting the Pakistani people, it's hard to imagine why it would get so much criticism. So obviously one of the reasons was addressed by Dr. Partha, but another reason is also India's perception towards the ports that China is investing in, and one of them is of course the port of Gwadar. So this is a question that I've had to address on various platforms, and I think I will take this opportunity to address it again, that there is a big misconception about what the Gwadar port's development is really all about. It's about actually bringing economic prosperity to a region of Pakistan, Balochistan, which was largely underdeveloped, and it is a port that Pakistan has wanted to invest in for decades. And seeing how the Pakistani people are responding to the port of Gwadar's investment, we see already signs of improvement in terms of education, health, and basic living standards of the people. We need to show the world that actually the ports that China is investing in are not China's own strategy imagined by China, but actually it's a mutual understanding between the countries that are hosting the Belt and Road Initiative, and definitely so in the case of Pakistan.
As I mentioned in the beginning of the program, there are some new reports from some Indian media saying China is colonizing the Gwadar port by building a gated community for some 500,000 Chinese workers near Gwadar. What is the story? Have you heard anything about that? I
haven't just heard this story that's so blown out of proportion or exaggerated. It is unfortunate that the media can play a very negative role in escalating or sensationalizing and changing facts. What is happening in Pakistan right now is that we are in the first phase of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which means that skilled Chinese labor that has experience in constructing infrastructure is being sent to Pakistan, and this is labor that Pakistan is benefiting on. This is a major concept behind the Belt and Road. Both Pakistan and China know this is happening. We we welcome Chinese people in Pakistan to help Pakistan develop its infrastructure.
Yes.
And most importantly, we are already talking about how vocational training, technology transfer is going to happen so that Pakistanis will be the ones running this project.
Well, yeah,
So
ideally it will be good to hire local workers, but at this moment, if you really use local workers, the progress of the project and everything will be very different.
But I would like to...
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I would like to just...
Briefly.
So this, even now, even though most Chinese workers are the ones constructing the projects, in the port of Gwadar and in many other Chinese companies are prioritizing hiring Pakistani people. I already mentioned this, that right now the labor benefit is on a lower level maybe, but we see it improving. So it's not that Pakistanis are not being employed.
Let me address one of the interesting points that our guest in India mentioned just now about these projects in Malaysia that are being cancelled by Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad. Professor Song, I would like to hear your opinion on this. Basically, the idea is on August the 21st, on the last day of his trip to China, Mahathir Mohamad cancelled two China-funded projects. One is a $20 billion East Coast rail link project, and there are also two gas pipeline projects. So some people are saying you know, the Belt and Road Initiative is hitting a stall in that country, and what kind of repercussion, what do these cancellations stand for, and what kind of repercussions are you fearing in the future, maybe?
Yeah, I want to say that from Malaysia's side, its leaders said that they want to escape the high debt, so they cancel the big projects. So I want to say that just as I said just now, if it built a big railway along the coastline, it will make the transportation for the people and also for the goods to be convenient in that region, and it will attract more and more FDI, and it will attract more and more enterprises to invest there, and it will boost the local economy comprehensively in many different ways. Not just maybe the cost of the railway is it will not earn money in the near future, but I think after building the railway, the local economy totally will be promoted. So, and also, I don't want to say that I don't say that there will be some big trouble between China and Malaysia, the Belt and Road Initiative cooperation, because besides this railways or the pipeline cooperation, we have many other cooperations, such as we have cooperated to build some industrial parks both in Malaysia and China. So we will have more cooperation opportunities.
Okay. Well, every project has to be looked at on their own merits, whether it is a good, feasible project, a profitable project, or whether it is a project that cannot stand on its own. I think the situation is so complicated. There are so many of these projects, so it is very difficult to judge the whole fate of this initiative based on individual projects. But investors and the local governments do have to make their own calculation. Unfortunately, we have to leave it there, but many thanks to my three guests, Dr. Partha Mukho'padhyay, a Senior Fellow at the Center for Policy Research, Professor Song Qingrun from the China Institute of Contemporary International Relations, and Ms. Zoon Ahmed Khan, a Research Fellow at Tsinghua University. And that is it for this edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. As always, follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle The Point. With our X, download the application called CGTN to watch the show on your mobile devices, or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. Thanks for watching. You've got The Point.